Right, so get this. We are diving deep today into some pretty wild stuff. You sent in a ton of info about ancient Egyptian cosmology, astral projection, remote viewing, even some declassified government documents.
Yeah.
It's like we're about to unlock some seriously secret knowledge here from a lost civilization and compare it to what, like, modern science is finding out now.
Yeah, it really is remarkable how these ancient ideas, about consciousness and the cosmos, they really seem to resonate with some of this cutting-edge research that we're seeing in physics and parapsychology these days. We're going to try to explore today how some of these seemingly different fields might actually be looking at some of the same concepts just from different angles.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Your sources are like a real mix. We've got academic texts, esoteric writings, scientific papers.
Right.
It's a lot. But one thing that keeps popping up over and over again is this idea of consciousness extending beyond the physical body and possibly even interacting with other dimensions or planes of existence.
Yeah.
Did the ancient Egyptians have any grasp on this, you think?
They did. The ancient Egyptians developed a really sophisticated cosmology, which is detailed in texts like the Metu Neter. It actually describes 7 distinct planes of existence.
Oh, wow.
And each plane is associated with specific energies and deities.
So it's like a cosmic map of reality.
Yes, exactly.
And they believe that we humans, that we have an energy body that can, like, navigate these planes.
That's right. The Egyptians believed this energy body could travel through these planes, particularly the astral plane, which is often associated with dreams and out-of-body experiences.
Okay. Whoa. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. You pulled out some of these declassified documents from intelligence agencies about remote viewing. Are you saying they were actually looking into psychic spies?
Believe it or not, yes. During the Cold War, agencies like the Stanford Research Institute, they were seriously looking into remote viewing, the ability to perceive distant locations or events through psychic means.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they wanted to use it for espionage.
That's wild. So did they actually find anything, like any evidence that this stuff worked?
Well, there are a lot of compelling cases. You specifically highlighted a 1973 experiment where a team of remote viewers at SRI were asked to describe Jupiter's atmosphere. And amazingly, they all independently reported seeing this massive swirling vortex.
Oh, wow.
Which was later confirmed by the Pioneer 10 spacecraft.
Really?
And get this, the spacecraft's findings actually came after the viewers' reports.
No way. So they accurately described something on Jupiter before science could even confirm it.
Yes.
How could they possibly know that? This is blowing my mind.
That's the million-dollar question. Some researchers think that these remote viewers might be tapping into something called the astral plane, a realm of non-physical existence where information is just readily available. And this idea actually aligns with the ancient Egyptian concept of a non-physical realm that you can get to through the energy body.
Right. Okay. So we've got ancient cosmology saying there's an energy body capable of astral travel, and modern science is exploring subspace mind and extra-dimensional spaces. I'm seeing how these ideas could be connected, but I'm still a little fuzzy on this whole energy body thing.
Yeah.
What is it exactly?
Well, it's a concept that kind of bridges ancient wisdom and modern science.
Yeah.
The Egyptians believed this energy body was composed of this subtle energy or life force. And modern science might be catching up with the idea of bioplasma.
Bioplasma. Yeah, that sounds familiar. You mentioned that in your notes. Is that like some kind of electromagnetic field that surrounds living beings?
Exactly. The idea is that living organisms, they actually give off measurable electromagnetic fields, which some researchers believe could be like the scientific basis for the Egyptian energy body. It's a really interesting connection.
It is, yeah. But how does bioplasma relate to consciousness? Is it just a byproduct of like biological processes, or is there something more to it?
That's where it gets really, really interesting. Scientists like A. Akimov and V. Kaznachev, you pointed them out in your research, they actually suggest that these bioplasma fields might be more than just side effects. They propose that these fields actually play a fundamental role in how we think, how we feel, and even how we interact with the world around us.
So if I'm getting this right, you're saying that our consciousness could be intertwined with this bioplasma field, which might even extend beyond our physical bodies.
That's the emerging theory. Some physicists even think there's a subspace mind, or a biomatrix, a field of consciousness that exists beyond our typical perception, where our thoughts and emotions might actually interact with, like the fabric of reality itself.
Okay, now that's really far out. We're talking about the possibility of consciousness literally shaping the world around us.
Yeah.
So how does this bioplasma theory connect back to the ancient Egyptian idea of the 7 planes of existence?
Well, that's where things get even more fascinating. Some researchers believe that the Egyptians might have been describing different levels of consciousness, like different vibrational frequencies, within this bioplasma field.
Well,
It's like they intuitively understood that reality is multidimensional.
so the astral plane, for example, could be a state of heightened consciousness within this bioplasma field
Yeah.
rather than an actual physical place.
Precisely. And this reinterpretation actually makes the Egyptian cosmology even more relevant to modern explorations of consciousness. It's like they were saying, hey, these ancient teachings might hold really valuable insights into expanding our awareness and understanding how everything is connected.
This is so wild.
Mm.
But I have to admit, now I'm starting to think about all the potential downsides of this.
Uh-oh.
If our consciousness is that powerful and that interconnected, wouldn't that open up some serious ethical concerns? Like, what if someone figured out how to manipulate these energies for bad reasons?
That's a really valid concern, and it is something we definitely need to look at more. Some of the sources that you sent mentioned this unsettling idea of psychotronic weapons, technologies that could be used to exploit these subtle energies for manipulation or harm.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. That is some spooky stuff. Are we talking about mind control and, like, psychic warfare?
It's a very controversial topic,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of speculation around it, but it is something that we need to consider as we explore the deeper implications of consciousness and these subtle energies.
This is a lot to think about. I'm
Yeah.
already feeling like I need a break to process all of this. But before we do that, can you tell me more about how these ancient Egyptian ideas about the energy body connect to something you mentioned earlier called chakras?
You sure?
I've heard that word before, but I don't really know what it means.
That's a great question. The concept of chakras comes from a lot of different esoteric traditions, including ancient Egyptian texts. These are 7 energy centers, and they're located along the spine. Each one is associated with different aspects of consciousness and well-being.
Okay.
And get this, they line up surprisingly well with the Egyptian cosmology.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm really interested. Tell me more. How do these chakras fit into everything we've been talking about?
Well, each chakra is thought to control certain functions in the body and mind. For example, the root chakra, which is located at the base of the spine, that one's all about grounding, like
Yeah.
survival instincts and our connection to the physical world.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So how does that connect to the Egyptian cosmology?
Well, the ancient Egyptians had a deity called Geb, and he represented the earth. And it's really fascinating how Geb's attributes line up with the qualities of the root chakra. It's as if they saw this connection between our basic survival instincts and the grounding energy of the earth.
Wow, that's really cool. So is there like a similar correspondence for each of the 7 chakras?
There are some really interesting parallels. You've got the sacral chakra, for instance. It's located in the lower abdomen. And that one's all about emotions, creativity, our sense of pleasure.
Right, that's the one where you really feel your emotions and express yourself creatively.
Yeah, exactly. And in Egyptian mythology, the deity Seeker was the god of the underworld and transformation. His domain was a place of death and rebirth, but also a source of creative energy. So it's interesting to see how these themes of transformation and creative power really line up with the sacral chakra.
Yeah, I'm seeing a pattern here. Each chakra seems to have a corresponding Egyptian deity with similar attributes. It's like a whole secret language or something.
Yeah.
What about the heart chakra? That one seems really important.
Absolutely. The heart chakra is located in the center of the chest, and that's all about love, compassion, and connection.
Right.
And if you look at the Egyptian pantheon, the goddess Ma'at embodies those same principles. She was the goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic order. Her presence made sure that everything was harmonious and balanced in the universe.
Wow, so it's almost like these ancient myths and archetypes are reflecting parts of ourselves. So if the ancient Egyptians were right about this connection between chakras and deities, what can we do with this knowledge? How can we use it in our lives today?
That's a great question. It's one thing to just be amazed by these ancient ideas, but it's a whole other thing to actually integrate them into our lives. One way to approach it is to view these chakras as energy centers, and you can balance and activate them through certain practices.
Okay, what kind of practices are we talking about?
Well, a lot of traditions offer techniques for working with these energies.
Okay.
Meditation, yoga, energy healing, even just spending time in nature. All of those things can help bring your chakras into balance.
So by working with these chakras, could we improve our well-being or be more creative or even be more loving and compassionate?
Exactly. It's about tapping into our full potential as human beings, just like the ancient Egyptians believed we could.
This is amazing. It makes me wonder what other secrets and insights we could learn from these ancient teachings. But before we get too carried away with all the good stuff, I think we should go back to those potential dangers we were discussing earlier. That psychotronic weapons thing is still bugging me out.
Yeah, you're right. It's really important to keep a balanced view when we talk about these ideas. Just as there's potential for healing and growth, there's also the potential for misuse and manipulation, especially when we're dealing with energy and consciousness.
So let's get into that a little more. How would those psychotronic weapons even work? What are we talking about here?
Well, it's a really complex topic, and there's a lot of speculation and misinformation floating around out there.
Yeah.
The basic idea is that certain frequencies or electromagnetic fields could be used to influence brain activity, emotions, or even physical health.
So you're saying that there could be technology that could mess with people's minds and bodies without them even knowing it. That sounds like something straight out of a movie.
It does sound pretty far out, I know. And while there is research suggesting that certain frequencies can affect brain waves, the idea of fully controlling someone's mind or actions with this, that's still very much in the realm of speculation.
But still, the fact that anyone is even thinking about this is a bit scary. It definitely raises a ton of ethical questions about how this could be abused and if there should be some safeguards put in place.
Absolutely. As with any scientific advancement, especially those dealing with consciousness and energy, we have to be careful and consider all the possible outcomes, both good and bad.
I'm curious, did the ancient Egyptians have anything to say about these darker aspects of consciousness and energy? Do their teachings offer any insights into this?
Oh, they might not have had the words or the technology to describe something like a psychotronic weapon. Their myths and stories do warn us about the misuse of power and the dangers of negative energy. For instance, the concept of Isfet in their beliefs represented chaos, disorder, and violence, these forces that could disrupt the harmony of the cosmos.
So it's like they understood that there was a dark side to everything.
Yeah.
That there's always the potential for imbalance.
Exactly. And maybe they were trying to tell us to be careful, to develop our own inner strength and wisdom so we can tell the difference between creative forces and destructive ones.
Wow, this conversation has taken some really interesting turns. We started by looking at all the amazing potential of consciousness, and now we're talking about how it could be manipulated. It's a lot to process. I bet our listeners feeling it too.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who is listening to all this and thinking, okay, this is all fascinating, but I have no idea where to even start?
I think the most important thing is to remember that knowledge is power. The more we understand these things, the more we can make informed choices in our lives.
That's good advice.
I would encourage listeners to start with what interests them the most.
Okay.
What are they curious about? What parts of these ideas feel the most relevant to their lives?
So, for example, if someone is interested in the energy body and chakras, they could try things like meditation or yoga to connect with those energies.
Exactly. And if someone is intrigued by remote viewing or the potential of the subspace mind, there are tons of resources out there for research and exploration.
It's like we've opened up this huge world of possibilities, and now it's up to each person to decide how they want to explore it.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, well, we have covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the potential and the risks of consciousness. We've looked at both ancient wisdom and modern science, and we've even discussed the possibility of psychotronic manipulation. But I still have one question. What about the afterlife?
Oh.
I mean, the Egyptians were really focused on the afterlife, right?
They were.
So how does all this connect to what they believed happened after we die?
That's a fascinating question, and it takes us right back to the heart of the Egyptian cosmology.
So can you remind me how their ideas about the afterlife connect to all of this?
Well, the ancient Egyptians believed that death wasn't really the end. It was more like a transition to a different realm of existence.
Okay.
They thought of the afterlife as a continuation of the journey of consciousness, kind of like how we've been talking about consciousness existing beyond the physical body.
Oh, I see. So you're saying that all those elaborate rituals and beliefs they had about the afterlife, that was basically them trying to prepare for this continued journey of consciousness.
Exactly. They believed that by living a good life, honoring the gods, and preserving their bodies through mummification, they could ensure a smooth transition into the afterlife.
That makes sense. But where does this fit in with the 7 planes of existence we discussed earlier? Did they believe the afterlife was on one of those planes?
That's where it gets really interesting. Remember, we were talking about the possibility that those planes might not be literal physical places?
Yeah.
What if they represent different states of consciousness or different vibrational frequencies?
Right. Are you suggesting that the Egyptian afterlife could be more like a specific state of consciousness rather than an actual physical place?
That's one way to look at it. Maybe they were trying to describe a more elevated state of being, a higher vibration of consciousness that you could access after death.
That makes me think of something you said before about the subspace mind or biomatrix. Could that be what they were talking about?
That's a really interesting connection. Some researchers believe that this subspace mind could be where consciousness goes after death, a realm of pure awareness that goes beyond the physical body.
Wow, that's a really cool idea. So maybe the Egyptians were onto something with all their beliefs about the afterlife. Maybe they were trying to describe something that modern science is just starting to understand now.
It's definitely possible. Their cosmology seems to have foreshadowed many modern scientific discoveries. They understood that everything is connected, that reality has multiple dimensions, and that consciousness could exist beyond the physical body.
It's like they were looking into the future, using their intuition and wisdom.
I think the biggest takeaway from all this is that the ancient Egyptians weren't just obsessed with death. They were fascinated by life, by consciousness, and by the mysteries of the universe.
And their teachings might actually have some important clues for us on our own journey of self-discovery.
I think so. They remind us that exploring consciousness is an ongoing adventure that goes beyond the limits of time and space.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything in this deep dive. We've explored ancient Egyptian cosmology, the human energy body, remote viewing, and even psychotronic manipulation.
It's been a pretty mind-blowing journey.
It has.
But at the end of the day, it's up to each person to decide what resonates with them and how they want to use this knowledge in their own lives.
I agree. You've definitely given us a lot to think about.
And I encourage all of you listening to keep exploring these topics, dig deeper into what interests you, and trust your own intuition as you navigate the realms of consciousness and the cosmos.
So to wrap things up, I have one last question for all of you listening. What if the ancient Egyptians were right about more than just the afterlife? What if their cosmology holds the keys to unlocking the true potential of the human mind, and maybe even the nature of reality itself? It's something to think about as we finish this deep dive into consciousness and the cosmos. Until next time, keep exploring.